And so the thing is that when we tell the story of Gondis and then Dr. Bosky goes and fights Gondis, we always tell a little bit of the backstory, right? So there was this Titan, and this Titan, his name was Srevis, and he was a Titan of demons. And he was defeated a few thousand years ago in this world, and he was forced, because you can't really kill Titans, he was forced into sleep, and so he slumbered. This is still this is not a final image, but they forced him to lay down and slumber. And then so over thousands of years, his insides and the underside became these subterranean caverns, and people were lured to the sleeping consciousness of Srevis, and they built cities underground. And so we're gonna have this thing where we start very, very close, even closer than this, I think, probably something like this. And then the camera it'll start further out when we have more water in the back, but it'll start further out, and we'll do this thing where we scroll up nice and slow. This is fast, but then we do this thing where it comes up kind of like this, and then we pull the camera back, right? And it'll look something like this. This is sort of like the shot. We actually might do it like this. So I think it's actually we get close like this, because we give you the hint, and we show this kind of forest thing, right? And then I'll show you guys this real quick. So then we do this thing where we're going to crossfade into this shot. Basically, the shot is then of this close-up of the forest, and then showing kind of like that you can, you're going to progress through the forest. And then we pull the camera back and do the wide shot like this. And then you're like, whoa, you see the big Titan thing. The clouds are going to parallax here. We'll have a couple frames of animation. Like it's very motion graphic design, because I can't afford to do crazy animation. The birds we'll have them probably in 2 frames. Maybe we'll just have them moving around just a little bit. And then the camera will zoom back in, and it'll come over here. Here you'll have it'll be probably a little closer, but you'll get this, this kind of thing where then we crossfade into the entrance into the cavernous insides of Srevis, outside of just a few people. So we're not there yet, but it's so our production values are much higher this time around. Which, well, if you're gonna do it, you may as well do it. So, but it's taking a little bit longer too to work on this. So, but here's a good example of like this whole interior is essentially Srevis. This dark wellspring is this chamber. This is before Gondis was created, and so they're like basically creating him to be a guardian of this chamber. So just like in the regular animation, we're going to have some basic moving bits, extra effects, right? Because the effect shots are a little bit cheaper, because I can buy a lot of effects and then I can just put them together in After Effects. So Blue says, you have good imagination. Oh, thanks, Blue. Just something we work on, like over time. The hardest thing with imagination is trying to keep an understanding of like what your world looks like and how to turn it into stories that you can remember. So a good example, right, is that we have this this board. I use Trello. Trello's also a free tool. And it's basically just a very simple list to list. I run all kinds of projects in Trello. But here's just an example of like all these characters that we have in our world, that as I basically they get their own cards, and then we we continue to fill it out. And as we do, like, I think about building out a world as sort of like a cinnamon roll, right? In that you start with the inner gooiness, and then as you kind of swirl around it, that becomes the world itself. But you always kind of remember where the what your favorite part of the cinnamon roll is. For me, the center. So it's kind of our process. Here's Gondis. He's the man of the hour. When we started creating him, we didn't really have her yet. And so Neda is this parasitic fairy, and the parasitic fairy, essentially their whole existence is about finding really powerful beings, and then basically creating a parasitic relationship with them. And they're life bonders. So she can only have one, and if she dies, he dies as well. And one of the things I really like, one of our design elements as we've been jamming, so one of the cool design elements we found, one is I really wanted to have this like these dark glowing kind of power lines that were, you know, because he's kind of like he's sort of like he's demonic essence and elemental and like elemental rock fused together, right? And so when she encountered him, she had to find a way to nest herself in him, and that's a whole different sub story, right? But now they're one, and so we did this. I think we really knocked it out of the park with like creating this like this space and this connection. So with her, so Neda, she basically she can, you know, fly out to like hundreds of meters, and so they generally hang out in these dark caverns, right? And so she's kind of like a will-o'-the-wisp. So she's like, hey, come follow. She's like she's like this. She does this. She goes, listen. And she gets your attention, and then she flitters away, right? And Gondis is just waiting. And generally, like, you try to have his power subdued, and then you get too close, and it's too late for you. Gondis has got it in for you. And so he's been guarding this chamber. So we're trying to get this backstory and, you know, and taunt about, or to tease about, right? Because part of making something cool is you don't just say everything there is to it. You leave stuff to the imagination, or at least you imagine it, write it down, and then you frame the story around that. And that's it's an important part of the process, I think. And so also another little thing that came out of this is that we got the mammer, right? And so the umbilical cord essentially also is the holster for his crazy like mace hammer hybrid thing. So, you know, here's the thing. And then another tiny subtle thing, right? So this is Gondis's mammer, right? So this is his main weapon. And then this is what happens when Dr. Bosky defeats Gondis, and it becomes this mammer. So you can see in the head design that it actually, because the story of Neda and Gondis is a love story. I really, really enjoy that part. So